to Jerry Bonkowski about the Pennzoil 400 that is coming up today, or not today, excuse me, on Sunday, a 3:30 start locally for NASCAR fans. One of the things that is the stories that have come out is after last week's race in Atlanta, the big rain delay, I guess the TV ratings were off 15%. It was a very exciting Daytona 500. I think we both were in agreement about that. There was some criticism that it only got a 5.1 rating. Still, we're talking about, it does seem like there are certain stars that are coming out, the Bowmans, the Wallaces, even though Wallace didn't finish that well in Atlanta. Your thoughts? So is this a rough stretch, or is there something else that NASCAR needs to do right now to increase TV ratings? Is there something really that they really have to make a push, or is this just, like you said, we're going through a changing of the guard? What do you think it is?
Well, if they need something to increase the ratings, they probably already tried it already. It's just an evolutionary cause and effect kind of thing. NASCAR, is still a very popular sport. A lot of fans want to tune into it, but a lot of other fans, they have other things going on. And remember, this is the time of year where you've got college basketball still going on. You've got the college tournaments going on right now. Some fans, maybe getting ready for spring break. The Daytona 500 was a great race. There's no question about it. Very exciting race. But, you can't, as much as NASCAR would love to see it, you can't keep that momentum going for 36 races. There's going to be peaks and valleys. Atlanta, there was, the race was, the rain delay, that obviously caused some impact. I think people that wanted to watch the race early, obviously they couldn't. And maybe something came up that they had to leave and they couldn't watch the race later. So, it's not anything that NASCAR is not doing or anything that NASCAR is doing that's causing it. It happens, and we're in a situation now where, like you mentioned, the young drivers like the Alex Bowmans, the Eric Joneses, the Darrell Wallace, Bubba Wallace, Chase Elliott, they're gonna get more fans. There's no doubt in my mind that there's a lot more fans coming. It's gonna take time, and I think that if we have this conversation 5 years from now, I think we'll be talking about how great the attendance is, how great the TV ratings are, because these young drivers are going to be bringing in new fans.
Years ago on the first incarnation of this show, I remember talking to Phil Garner, the manager then of the Milwaukee Brewers, and he was talking about, the differences in the way he felt certain sports were covered. And it seemed at the time, baseball was just coming after a strike. Out of a strike. There was a lot of long knives out for baseball at the time. And we actually commented on that, I recall, on these airwaves. What I'm asking now is that I saw where the NBA All-Star Game got a 5-1 rating. And I see where NASCAR, the Daytona 500, got a 5-1 rating. And I'm hearing national media on our 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities airwaves talk about what an exciting and great NBA All-Star game it was, whereas same exact rating, Daytona 500, they got to change everything there. Is there, in your mind, a difference in the way NASCAR is covered in terms of other sports, maybe a little critical from national media? What are your thoughts on that, Jerry?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is that NASCAR, like other sports, is not immune to having lost a lot of writers, a lot of media coverage.
Okay.
There's been a lot of writers over the years that were almost institutions in covering the sport, and for whatever reason they were laid off or let go, or there was a change in coverage policies by their publications, primarily publications, newspapers and websites, things like that. So, I don't think that, you're going to get criticism no matter what the sport, but I think that, NASCAR has certainly lost some reporters coverage, and as a result, the coverage, in general has suffered from that. But, for them to try to criticize NASCAR, the remaining reporters, oftentimes I think that they go off and criticize just for the sake of criticism, whereas, like you made a very valid say. I mean, if you're going to pick your spots for criticism, pick your spots good. And, just because there's something that appears bad to the eye, it may not necessarily always be bad to the eye, if you know what I'm saying.
I do hear exactly what you're talking. And it's interesting you mentioned the writers and all that. I mean, yeah, the Ed Hintons and all this. I love Jenna Fryer. I've been trying to get her on the show, to tell you the truth. It doesn't reply to the tweets, but no, I still do like her writing very much. And of course, locally here, Jeff Birchfield does a really fine job with the local newspapers, and he's actually had some national recognition as well. So is Jerry Bonkowski of NBCSports.com. Las Vegas this week, two races now for Las Vegas. Daytona, Atlanta, Super Speedway. You mentioned with Las Vegas, they like it's the Las Vegas atmosphere, the partying, the let's go there, have a good time, feeling all that. But what is unique about this track in your mind?
Well, a couple things. Number one, wind can be a very big problem there. It literally is out in the middle of the desert. You have Nellis Air Force Base right across the street, which oftentimes you get kind of a free air show, if you will, with the planes taking off and going in and that kind of thing. But, with where the track is, there's not a lot of other infrastructure around it. So, oftentimes you can see the sand from the desert blowing onto the track. You see the wind, coming across. So that's one thing. And drivers, the cars can be a handful when that wind starts blowing. When it hits gusts of 30, 40 miles an hour, those cars are definitely handfuls to drive. But, the other thing, too, is it's a mile and a half. You've got the Neon Garage, which is a big fan favorite. Attracts a lot of fans into the infield. You've got entertainment going on in the infield even during the race. There's like Elvis imitators and bands and things like that. So it's the full spectrum, I think, for not only the drivers but also for the fans as well. And that's another reason why I think NASCAR eventually awarded a second race of the year for Las Vegas, because it's very popular early on as the third race of the year. And now it's going to be very popular with one of the races in the playoffs as well, too.
I just wish Telly Savalas was still with us, and then he could, come out and talk about all the discounts you can have by buying tickets to the Pennzoil 400 and such. Hey, who do you think's going to win it, Jerry?
This is one of those races that a lot of factors have to be taken into consideration. Like I said, the weather, the wind is one thing you have to look at. Obviously, drivers who had success on 1.5 mile tracks. I like Jimmy Johnson. He's had a rough start to the season. I think that he could make a quick rebound, if you will, if he were to win this race. I think you're going to see. There's also a legitimate explanation to see maybe a guy like a Chase Elliott or Alex Bowman get their first Cup race. And I think the Alex is going to get. It's going to be a question of who gets the first Cup win between Alex and Chase. They're teammates, obviously, and I think Vegas would be a good track for either one of them to win it. And then you got, of course, the local boys. You've got Kurt and Kyle Busch. I think Brendan Gaughan, I believe, is racing in the Cup race as well, too, there. But I know I'm pretty sure he's in the Xfinity race, too. So, if you're a Las Vegas resident, you'll be likely pulling for some of the hometown boys as well, too. So, I think that if I had to really pinpoint it, and I have not made my pick yet for the week, but I would probably lean towards one of those guys I just mentioned. Johnson, I think, he definitely needs a big win here, and he may still be the guy I'm going to pick. But right now it's still a little bit early. I'll make my pick probably tomorrow. But I do a little bit more studying. But I think that the names I mentioned are probably going to be the guys that are going to be in contention when it comes to the checkered flag. I'm going to check that out.
I like the Jimmy Johnson idea, but I'm here on the NBCSports.com webpage, and I know one of your contemporaries, Dustin Long, you mentioned the Bushes in Vegas. Since he came back in 2015, he's actually won more races, more Cup races than any other driver. I didn't know that. That's pretty decent reporting right there. It's Kyle Busch right there. Yeah. So anyhow, we'll look for that and see if that continues, a hometown story, or if it is a Jimmy Johnson going to prominence, or if it is, one of the young guns, boy, there's an old term that we're reviving, coming out and winning his first race or what have you. Anyway, Jerry Bonkowski, always a pleasure. I didn't have a chance to get to my monologue that I wrote out this morning, and I'm going to get that to end the show instead of to begin it like I normally do. It explains why we're actually happy that ETSU has drawn 4,400 fans a game for its basketball games when it used to be they drew 8,400. How did this happen? Tri-City Sports Now. Yes, during